One thing I forgot to mention when I was shooting that video is all of the testing that we did for this particular discussion was with this Federal Power Shock ammo. I have it there in a 150 in the 30-06, a 150 in the 308, and a 100 grain in the 243. And while that might not be the most accurate ammo in these three particular platforms, I have found in the past that that particular ammunition is very consistent across the board. And in terms of what we were doing concerning shooting for data on these different rests, consistency was really what we were after. That's why I chose that ammunition for the entirety of this portion of the content. Hope that makes sense. You wouldn't think you'd have to take so many takes of an unfiltered video. Hey there, folks. How you doing today? Welcome back to the channel. Please bear with the background racket that's going on right outside these walls. There is life happening out there. We're not going to let it stand in the way of what we're doing in here. I have a lot of stuff out here on the table in front of me. We're going to talk about all this and more over the next few minutes. This will be an episode of our Unfiltered Fans Only content. If you are not familiar with our Unfiltered Fans Only content, this is something that I do just for the folks that tune in and watch all of the stuff that we put out on the channel. This is my way of giving back. It's the viewer feedback portion of what we do. We address the comment section. We talk about things. It tends to go on a little bit longer than a standard review video would, and you're going to hear a little bit more pause and ramble out of me than you do in some of the stuff that we've worked a little harder to edit out. This video will be loosely based on our Ruger M77 Hawkeye guide gun series, which has been incredibly popular here on this channel. To all of you who have been following along with that, I say thank you. Let's keep that one going. Part 4 of that series will be out in the next couple of days. So what are we talking about here? Why do we have all this stuff out here on the table? Well, for starters, there have been tons and tons of comments, mostly positive, on the Ruger M77 guide gun series. But one thing that came up a few times in the comment section, with one individual in particular, it came up a couple of times, and that is that there are folks in the comment section who have said that the reason we couldn't get good groups out of our M77 Hawkeye guide gun is because I was shooting those groups off of the Caldwell lead sled. There were several individuals who indicated that you could not get good groups off of a lead sled. There were others that said you should not try to shoot out of a vise or let the rifle free recoil out of a lead sled type platform, because not only was it going to significantly change your point of impact, but it was bad on the rifle and it wasn't a natural shooting position, so on and so forth. I was kind of surprised at how many people were dead set against shooting off of the Caldwell lead sled. So let's back up a little bit and talk about why I have the Caldwell lead sled. For those of you who have followed any of the videos that we've done on my collection of 375 H&H Magnum rifles, you will know that those rifles will beat the dog out of you after you shoot them a little bit. And I'm not getting any younger, and I'm trying not to wear myself out any quicker than I have to. So when I had the opportunity to get a hold of this Caldwell lead sled, this is the DFT2 model. It's got the double frame. You can shoot ARs off of it. You can weight it with sand or lead bags. It really is a versatile shooting platform, and it really helped out with shooting some of the Magnum rifles. It kind of made it more pleasant when doing bench work. So that's what I acquired it for. As it turns out, I liked using it so much, I drag it out to the range with me whenever I go, because it takes the sting out of the longer range sessions that I tend to have to do when I'm filming content for YouTube. Now, I'm not the only person that uses one of these. If you look over at Adam's channel, Hootie Hoo, he shoots most of his work off of this exact same shooting platform.
Y'all watch the show, know this rest. This is my Caldwell DFT2. I pretty much use this rest for everything.
And he shoots some really good groups off of it. So when I had several people say that you cannot get good groups off of a lead sled, I had to think back to what the late, great Paul Harrell had to say about using terms like can't and never when talking about firearms. I'll just let him explain it to you.
Trying to convince themselves they're an expert when they're not. So, in no particular order, the top 5 are: first, someone who speaks absolutely authoritatively on something that not only does he not know, but he's not in a position that he even would know.
So with that in mind, in the interest of fairness, I went to the range yesterday. I drugged the lead sled. I drugged this MTM shoulder guard, which is what I used to use quite frequently, as well as I acquisitioned, for the purpose of this video, the Caldwell tack driver bag set, as well as a Caldwell protector rest and bag set, so that I could shoot from a variety of platforms to get some real world data, because as we all know, good science, good data is repeatable and verifiable. So I went out to the range the other day and I shot 3 of the rifles that we have been working with here on the channel over the past year extensively with these 4 different platforms for the sake of science. Let's cover the rifles that we used. Out here in the front is my Ruger American Gen 2 243. No doubt some of you have seen the video series that we've done on that. It has been an extremely good and popular rifle for us to work with on here. I have no problems with it, although I will say that yesterday in our data collection, I actually got 2 of the worst groups I've ever shot with that rifle, along with some that were okay. I have a theory behind that. We'll cover it when we get to talking about the 243 here in a minute. I also took my Stevens Model 334 in 308 Winchester. This rifle has been insanely popular here on this series. This rifle continues to impress me. Dollar for dollar, this is one of the best rifles that I have ever purchased, although it was not without its problems. If you want to know more about this, we have an entire series of videos on the Stevens 334. The other rifle that I took with me, right up here on the wall, is our Ruger M77 guide gun. Now, if you've been following that series, you know that we had all kinds of not only accuracy but consistency problems with it, and that's what led to the debate about what I was using to shoot it from. So we'll get into that more. We're going to talk more about that rifle in a separate video that will come out later this week. I have been jaw-jacking long enough. Let's get over to the range and see what we ran into. Now, I'm only human and I do make mistakes. And one of the mistakes that I made yesterday was, well, I took a camera with me downrange to film the targets while we were shooting. For the first 2 sets of groups, which were off of the lead sled and the MTM shoulder guard, I forgot to start that camera. So I don't have the downrange footage of the impacts on the targets. I do have the targets. In fact, they're right over here with me, and we have some still pictures to throw up with those. But I didn't get the separate camera running in tandem at the time of shooting with these 2 for the first 2 groups. That being said, All right, now I'm going to throw up a still picture of the finished results of that target, as well as I have the results written down here. I'm going to be referring to my notes, so that's why I'm not looking at you while I'm talking. We'll start here with our 243 Winchester. Group number 1, which was shot off of the Caldwell lead sled, came in at a rather disappointing 1.79 inches. I pulled one of those low and to the left. That was me. I was having a hard time. Remember, I told you I was going to talk about something with that rifle in yesterday's session? I was having a hard time picking up the reticle on that scope with the targets that I was using, which were these Birchwood KC black and red targets here, the Dirty Birds. It's not a good combination. And then you have to add to that rifle has a muzzle brake and the wind was blowing in my face. So I had to wear my dark shades while I was shooting it. And as a result, I was having a little bit of trouble picking up the reticle with that rifle on that target. I pulled one out of the group there, and the overall end result was 1.79 inches. Well, then we'll move on to our 308 Winchester. This is the Stevens Model 334. The upper left target there indicates the group fired off of the Caldwell lead sled, and it came in at 0.8 inches. Moving on to our Ruger Hawkeye guide gun. Off of the Caldwell lead sled, we shot the best group with that rifle of the day was a 0.60. So just over half a minute of angle with that rifle. Now, those of you that have been following that series is going to say, that's a pretty good group for a rifle that wasn't group, and we're going to talk about that more in the next video. So please come back and follow along with that. Let's move on to our MTM shoulder guard rest. Again, with the Ruger American, the first group was 2.2 inches. I had a significant flyer. I think it was the second or third shot out of that group. It was so bad, I went ahead and I fired a fourth round at that target. If you look there at the target, you'll see that with the flyer, it was 2.20 inches. If you omit the flyer out of that group, it was 1.17, but it was a 2.2 inch group. Moving on to our Stevens Model 334 off of the MTM shoulder guard. I was disappointed when it happened. I shot a 2-inch group with this rifle. I felt the shoulder guard slip under the rifle right when the recoil happened. That was one of the issues I had with the MTM shoulder guard, and that was one of the reasons I quit using it. It has a tendency to slip and slide around on you, and I have personally found that that's not the most stable of shooting platforms. Moving on to our Ruger Hawkeye, group opened up a little bit from what we got off of the lead sled, but it was still a 1.08 inch group. Not bad for a rifle that was having so much trouble holding a group before. And as far as that goes, it was right in the middle of the pack for group size that we got out of that rifle during our testing. Moving on to group number 3, I actually have the full footage for you here, and I'll play it for you. As you could see there, out of the 243, we got a 2.66 inch group. There was a high right flyer. I don't know what happened there. As I mentioned before, I was having a little bit of trouble with that reticle, and the wind was blowing, and I had my dark glasses on. No excuse. That was a terrible group. So I fired a fourth shot again just to see if I could get it back in with the others. And omitting the flyer, we were down under half an inch. But again, that was a 2.66 inch group. Really terrible, and I apologize for my lack of ability in that regard. Moving on with the Caldwell Protector and the 308 Winchester. As you can see there, we were able to hold a really good group out of the Stevens 334 and 308. We got it just right at
0.5 of 1 inch.
which bested our group off of the Caldwell lead sled by just a little bit. Moving on to our Ruger Hawkeye with the Caldwell Protector. We came in respectably just under 1 inch. Group number 4 was fired off of the Caldwell tack driver, which provided a very stable base, but as you'll see right here, the biggest issue with that bag platform is you have to pick up the heavy bag and kind of move it around if you're switching between rifles, because it wants to settle down and you have to pull that cinch strap on it. And it's a little bit of a hassle, not a big deal, but just know that that is probably the biggest drawback to that platform for me. That being said, with the Ruger American, we got a 1.18 inch group. With the Stevens 334, came in right at 3/4 of an inch. And with the Ruger American, we had the largest group of the day for that rifle was a 1.32 inch group. So, going back to the beginning of that, I told you I forgot to start the camera downstream when I was shooting with the Caldwell lead sled, and since the Caldwell lead sled is the subject of the debate here, I went ahead and shot a second group with all 3 rifles with this platform on camera. I got both cameras running, so now I'll put you through that. With the Ruger American Gen 2 in 243, we got a 1.09 inch group. With the Stevens Model 334, we got the best of the day 0.46 out of it, under half an inch off of the lead sled. And then jumping back over to the Hawkeye guide gun, we came in with a significantly larger than the other lead sled group, but still not a bad group, all things considered, a 1.27 inch group off of the Caldwell lead sled. Wow, that is a lot of numbers. What do these even mean? Well, allow me to talk to you about this target. I'm going to put it up over here so you can actually see it while we're talking about it. Of all those groups on that target, while none of them are fantastic, they're all pretty good, and they're all very consistent. If you'll notice, out of all 5 of those groups, not only are they all about the same size, they all hit to about the same point of impact, and they were all fired off of different rests. 2 of them were fired off of the Caldwell lead sled, 1 off of the tack driver, 1 off of the shoulder guard, and 1 off of the protector rest. What does that tell us? I think folks get tied up in the minutia so much with either things that maybe occurred on a single range session, or maybe they read about it on a forum, or maybe their buddy that knows a lot told them about it, or whatever it may be. Just know that while yes, there was some difference between the shooting platforms, there was some difference between what the shooter experienced shooting off of the different platforms. I would be real subtle, real careful in jumping to conclusions that one is really that much better than the other. Out of all of these, the only one that really caused me any problems throughout the range session was this MTM shoulder guard. And part of that was simply it has a tendency to shift on you right when you're shooting. That's happened before. I've had that issue with it in the past. And for that reason, I hesitate to take it and use it anymore. Although sometimes I will, just for the fact that it's lightweight and easy to take. And if I'm not shooting for pinpoint accuracy, or I'm not doing some kind of load development or that, maybe if I'm just taking a hunting rifle out to see if the scope is still on target for a hunt, then it's fine for that. And it's significantly cheaper than these other options. So that's something that you have to consider too. In fact, when I started using the Caldwell lead sled and I got rid of the case guard in my regular range sessions, I actually did a video on that. It's on the channel. You can look it up if you want to. The point I'm making is, don't be so quick to assume that a singular piece of equipment is the cause of all the problems when you're dealing with a certain issue when it comes to terms of accuracy or what you're able to do at the range. That's really all I had out of this. If you sit through all that, thanks for watching. I appreciate you being here. Until next time, folks, take care and God bless.